All right, thanks everybody for joining for the DoKC. Just a reminder, we do record these and put these on YouTube. It's open to the public. So we have not a huge agenda, but there's definitely some updates. Well, actually, important. We have a guest here, Lisa, um, and I'll let Lori introduce the project that you want to talk about. Um, but our agenda is I have some updates on the Get Started project, and then we will talk about with Lisa about the fundamentals of data ops, this project that she's working on, and then a couple of updates from SIG Storage. So with the new release, and then some things that are going to be that got pushed to V1.3.2 of Kubernetes, and then just talk about the DOK survey again. So, you know what? Why don't I reverse this and I'll let you, Lori, and Lisa talk about that project first. I'll put mine to get started after.
Okay. I like how you use for the icebreaker breakers August
Oh,
2 for the pumpkin spice latte. That's funny. Lisa, you didn't say it, you didn't see it, but in my post on the DOK SIG, I said this was our unofficial goodbye to summer and hello to the pumpkin spiced latte that is fall, since they did release the latte early this year, and it's going to be 100 degrees today in Wilmington, so I feel like it's a little too early
that's
to
right.
be nice and everything nice. But that's
Yeah,
okay.
I forgot to ask the question. Okay, okay. I don't. Well, maybe it's regional because I don't know if they get it in Prato, Italy, if they have the pumpkin spice latte. But is just raise of hands. Is August too early to release the pumpkin spice latte?
Yeah, man. It's like when you go to like what is it? Like any store and they're already doing Halloween. Are they already doing Halloween? They're already
Yeah,
doing all kinds of things. Am I maybe
Costco has Halloween stuff.
oh, it's crazy.
Okay. I
Um,
just wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy. All right, but I'll let you take over again.
cool. So
When they
yeah,
start putting stuff for Christmas.
yeah,
Like October, like before Halloween ends.
it's ridiculous. Um, well, so yeah, I want to very much happy to introduce Lisa here in a second. So Lisa and I met through the CDF, the Continuous Delivery Foundation. She is amazing and is all about AI and data and how to make it better. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa, but as part of being a CDF ambassador, you try to find projects and initiatives that you want to work on to help inform the community. And so she's got a great initiative. So if you want to give us a little high level deal about yourself and then jump right in, that would be amazing.
Sure. Thank you for the introduction, Lori. Yeah, so basically, I joined the CDF maybe about like less than a year ago. I met DoKC initially when I was giving a talk about data ops and ML ops strategies in open source. And he kind of came up to me with this really interesting idea that the CDF, which is known for projects like Tecton and like CD events, but also Jenkins, is trying to find its relevancy within this new AI ML space. And I think a lot of organizations are also kind of in the same place, including like OpenSSF or, other organizations like that. And so we kind of had this idea of like, what is data ops really? Because that should be a CDF owned thing, right? That should be by its name and definition, this marriage of DevOps and data infrastructure or machine learning application deployments. How are we finding and redefining a lot of these applications? And so eventually I became this ambassador for the CDF and he became governing board chair. And I kind of figured, okay, what is my mark that I want to leave here? And I noticed that in the last year as well, a lot of these groups and organizations have created AI ML working groups. So, for instance, the OpenSSF has their AI ML working group. And there's a lot of other groups that are kind of also finding the same place. Gen AI Commons was kind of put together, and LFAI and Data is incubating a lot of new projects now. So, there's a lot going on. And of course, one of like this group is kind of part of that too, right? Like the CNCF is also kind of showing their relevancy in the story. So I wanted to put together this marriage of like all these ideas and courses of these best practices, just because I feel like as somebody who comes from a data background, I didn't know that much about security, and I'm the last person to secure my like actual applications. But at the same time, I don't know anybody in the OpenSSF. I don't know like those guys, but they're also creating their own solutions to these problems. How do we get these people talking? And so I kind of wanted to figure out what the best medium for this was. As a part of that, I can't share my screen, but
Oh, I'll
yeah,
make you a co-host here.
awesome. Thank you.
1 second.
It's nothing fancy, but I figured, can we create this sort of like one big place to put all of this information on where people can knowledge share about data ops, and data ops being this inherently kind of vague thing that people are still kind of defining on the go as well. So I wanted to create a course initiative, and essentially the end goal idea of this is some sort of like large course or certification where each chapter introduces a different part of the stack in terms of how you would deploy a enterprise level machine learning or generative AI application. But to start, I kind of want to do a series of blog posts just to keep the winds low and just to help us flesh out the interest around like the material that would be around this. So spearheaded by the Continuous Delivery Foundation, but actively looking at all of these other working groups to collaborate with, because we are certainly not the authority on all of these things. We want to create a series of technical materials that are meant for other engineers, but also AI/ML or data engineers who are interested in getting their toes wet in these other disciplines and who want to understand, how they can best use the tools that are available to them to deploy generative AI applications. So, like I said, the whole point of this course is to provide like introductory chapters where people can understand the basics. So for instance, data on Kubernetes, or, model signing, or, actually deploying CI/CD frameworks and doing it with a data lens. So this is kind of the agenda that we have so far in terms of different chapters that we have. Some might be just like introduction to data ops. Others, because I have a data engineering background, are more around, actual data architecture and data mesh. Others might be around pipeline orchestration, how we're using declarative programming in modern pipelines, CI/CD for these things, data quality and data observability. And here I have a very special chapter, which I am not qualified to write, which is cloud native data, right? Sure, I could go through Patrick's book and just like kind of try and steal whatever I can there. But generally speaking, I want there to be hands-on examples that we can use with the Linux Foundation's infrastructure to be able to show people hands-on, like what is cloud native data, how are people using it, and also as part of OPIA as well, I would love for us to be able to use these examples consistently throughout with the OPIA generative AI application. So this is an initiative backed by Intel and the Linux Foundation that has a fully open source stack for deploying different generative AI applications that you might have. I'm part of the developer experience working group for that. If people are interested, please let me know. But how can we show, and this was really Lori's input on this, how can we show what it is that the Linux Foundation does best, which is touch every single little part of tech and then bring that expertise in at the highest level? I've also been discussing with my primary co-editor. We were thinking that maybe down the line we would turn this into a the Phoenix Project style book where we have the story that goes through each chapter and these different teams and who you would have involved at each step and the kind of processes and scenarios that you might have. We want to create personas for each chapter, who it is that we're trying to target. But generally, at the very lowest level, we just want to have a bunch of blog posts that kind of touch on all these things. At the best end goal, we have like a whole certification or course, but that's a really big stretch goal. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions that people have. Hopefully that's a good overview.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks. And by the way, I have, so in addition to doing work with DoK, I'm also involved in data machine learning community. So we could potentially share some of this with like people. I don't know, Andrew Jones, the person who sort of basically invented data contracts, and Jean-Georges Perrin, who used to work at PayPal. He's working on Bital, which is the like open source data contracts project. So that's for those chapters. That might be another resource to reach out to that community if you're interested in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Jean-Georges and he's really awesome. And I think that he's looking to promote his new book as well. So I think that that works out really well. One of the issues I think that we may potentially have is that each one of these is a book. Like
Yeah.
literally each one of these is an O'Reilly book that exists. And so the scope creep is really large, where we can literally just hot link a book here and then call this a day. I really want to create something that's like a cohesive story, and I think that getting all of these writers on board with expertise is great, but I think it's also important for us to temper their expectations of how much we want them to actually write. We don't want them to just rewrite the book, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is like the initial idea like to actually put this in print as a book, or is it to have like basically like a digital book like on like GitHub or something like a reference?
I would love the end goal for this to be hosted. I haven't talked to the Linux Foundation about it, but I'd love for it to be a course on either O'Reilly or the Linux Foundation or Coursera, where there's these hands-on components. A book would be great, but I also think that that's such a huge endeavor to get a publisher involved in all of these authors. And I really want something that can stay relevant and updatable. So yeah, that's kind of the idea, is making sure that people can have environments that they can work in. One of the issues that I have with a lot of books that are working with scale like this is that people are kind of expected to deploy locally a lot of these technologies in order to use them. And I think that we should be providing that infrastructure because there's so many moving pieces to this. Um,
Yeah, I was thinking another in addition, to DOK, like the storage SIG, like Xing Yang, who's the co-chair of the storage SIG, she's also a good person, I think, to talk to about this because she's has a lot of experience. Like she helped with the our DOK database patterns white paper, so she has a lot of experience sort of um, collecting and organizing material like information in a very usable way.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Like this is a huge endeavor, so I feel like having somebody who's with some experience that would be fantastic. If you want to make that connection, I would be very happy for it.
Yeah, for sure. Um, cool. Let's
Yeah.
see. Steve says, not sure if you've seen this, but it's great
Y-
for the, oh, sorry. You're gonna say
Yeah,
something.
no. I just wanted to write it down before I forgot. Uh, so yeah, this is like a site that someone put together. He works on like Docker Slim and stuff, but basically it's just like a course website of a bunch of different Linux-based courses. And he recently released like a CLI that will allow you to write your own course for this content type, like in Markdown, so um potentially, that's some avenue that you can use, maybe perhaps partner with to get some, compute and playgrounds for a particular course.
Yeah, this is awesome. I used to write courses in Python and R, and so getting the CLI part down was actually really difficult. This is actually the piece that I was missing back then. So I'm very happy to have it now. And I think it's fantastic because it kind of is that interactive piece where people can learn alongside while they're doing instead of having to go back and forth constantly, which is a huge part of learning for sure.
Yeah, I mean his whole kind of theory is that you learn by doing, which, I agree with. And I played around with it. I honestly haven't had any time to like write content for it, but I mean it's pretty solid. It's like it's kind of like a side project, so I don't know exactly in terms of, we're talking about, I always talk about things like scalability, etc. I don't know kind of what it can do, but I think it's worth having a conversation if you like the platform. Um, and I mean, you can name drop me because he like kind of knows me.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I'll see if I can find him on LinkedIn.
I'll send it.
Um,
I'll send
yeah,
it.
some of these are pretty recent too, just 2023, so it's not like he's given up or anything like that.
Yeah, no, it's all, I mean, he releases content regularly.
Thank you. But yeah, I
Okay.
guess like the general call to action here, in terms of like what the ask is if we did like a chapter specifically on data on Kubernetes or cloud native data, like would you guys be willing to add on to that chapter and like help us flesh out the actual topics that should be covered and build out that material? And anything else if you want to, but that's kind of the one that I want to put you guys more on the hook for.
Yeah. Well, and this is Laura, I think this sort of came up because dovetails with like the initiative that I'm trying to get going, which is having a get started, clear get started um, guide for DoK. So I feel like a lot of that information would probably translate to um, basically the chapter on data on Kubernetes. Because I'm sure, well, and then I guess one of the questions I have is like how extensive are we getting here, right? Like you said, it's like we're not like we could just take, Patrick's book and then like summarize it, but like are you just looking for like the like high level?
Yeah, for the blog post, we're looking for something high level, just because I feel like that gives us a chance to actually scope things out, like what is the most essential material. Um, Generally, the end goal is not to have any more than like 10 to 12 pages of material per. If, we end up just going really overboard with it, then sure, but I would rather break that out into more smaller chapters than to kind of have like this one giant place.
Yeah,
I hope that makes sense.
yeah. Um,
Lisa, is there an easy way for people to start contributing besides just going to the doc? Like, are you gonna host and like a channel in the CDF or like, like are you gonna have like working group meetings or anything like that to kind of check in to see like progress, or is this kind of a on your own type
Uh,
deal?
yeah, so right now the easiest thing you can do is just highlight on the doc and comment your email, and then I'll create a little folder for you. What we're working on right now is setting up those meetings for regular working group meetings. I don't want to be super like micromanaging with people, but the idea is to eventually move this to a repo as well, because I think that's really where it should probably live, is somewhere on GitHub. But yeah, that we're just kind of organizing right now, and yeah.
okay. Um, cool. Yeah, we can start advertising this as well, like to see, posting and that'll have more information about like what you're after. See, because I'm sure there's other people who just can't come right now, but of course we'll also post this on YouTube. Um, yeah, I mean, this sounds look on the one. It's kind of comes at good timing because yeah, we're doing this Get Started project, which hopefully I want to have done by KubeCon in November, so we can talk about it. So we're sort of we're gathering this sort type of information already. I feel like
Hmm.
in a very like organized fashion. Um, and then if you want, I mean, you said you know Jean Georges, but you can if you mention me, he'll know who I am too. And you can say like if you know Paul said I should reach out to you about these types of things. But
Oh, I can't just be like, Paul demanded that you write this right now and stop everything.
yeah, I mean, he could also just steal from his book.
Yeah.
But yeah, but do you know Andrew Jones too?
Um, I don't think I've met him, no.
Okay,
Yeah.
he's the data contracts guy. Actually, if you want, you should come tomorrow. We have a talk about data contracts with Andrew Jones with Data Mesh
Yeah.
30.
That's good. I feel like there have been several key data contracts people that have certainly come up, because I know Chad Anderson, but I don't think I've fleshed out that world completely just yet.
Yeah, but yeah, I can also introduce you. Um,
Yeah, that would be
as well.
fantastic.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah, I don't know if anybody here is interested right now or if they can say, but I definitely think this is doable and something that we can help contribute to for sure.
Yeah, I'd be interested to maybe contribute something a little hands-on, but I don't know, we can maybe just if you're in the Slack, just DM me, we can kind of like go over specifics in terms of maybe what you're looking for, um, which areas and what I can offer.
Yeah, definitely. Lori, if you could invite me to the Slack, that would be fantastic. And what I'll do is create like an outline for people in terms of each chapter that they can start filling out. That would make it a little bit more clear in terms of the learning goals and outcomes. I appreciate this. Lori caught me at a very interesting time because this just got together last week. And so we're pretty early. But yeah, so if you, whatever you write, maybe that'll end up being the example for other folks. But I'm excited to hear that we can cross-post this with your getting started materials. I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, but that's honestly my putting an outline that I think that's good, knowing like what you're looking for, because that's where with this Get Started project, I had to sort of reshape it because it was too broad, and now I'm like, okay, I need to focus it and tell people like what does Get Started mean? Because that can
Yeah,
mean a lot of things.
definitely. And I would hope that the end goal of this is to give other engineers of different disciplines a starting place. And then if they want more in-depth materials in terms of implementations and debugging, that they would eventually end up at your group and your materials instead of just like staying within this one sphere.
Cool. Well, for now, yeah, that's awesome. Should we should we move on to the next item, if that's okay with everybody, or is there anything else?
Yeah, I just want to thank Lisa for coming. I think, I did catch you, I think, at the right time so that we could get in on the ground floor and help you build this together. It's very exciting. The SIG and the general channel and DOK have the link to your doc, and then we can definitely push it out again. And I sent you the invite link to your work email for joining the Slack channel, but yeah, thanks for being here. And, this initiative I think is great. And anything like that we can do to break silos between communities, I'm all in for. So this, I think, just is a win all around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Thanks a lot,
agree.
Lisa.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And I'll do I have your email too? Well, maybe Laura can share with me, and I'll send you some other information about like the data mesh learning people. Cool.
In the documentation, there's a link for the Google account, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Cool. Well, I'm going to share hopefully the right screen. So one of the things, with the Get Started project, I realized was like very broad. So boop. I changed it a little bit and basically added an outline. I also created, hold on, a repo, and this was basically just to get something up there. But with the project itself, I basically, it's still the same in that, we're leveraging existing resources. And then, secondarily, we'll find some gaps in content, and we can then fill those gaps, maybe write new content. But the goal, I've kind of defined it as, I don't know, Steve, you were asking like, well, are we coming at this from a perspective of a developer or what? So my goal here is provide a set of resources to help guide a complete beginner with a base set of knowledge to start running data workloads on Kubernetes. So, and what I did there was I'll break the content into sections in logical order to guide someone from DOK beginner to deploying their first stateful application. In this case, I put like how to deploy a database to Kubernetes. I don't know if that's the most the best option, but I just wanted to have like a goal, right? This is like go from not, maybe you do know Kubernetes, but maybe you're not having run a stateful application. So where do you start? So here are the questions basically I want to answer. So what does stateful mean? So have information on like what stateful means on Kubernetes, and then what are a little like summary of like what are the different types of stateful workloads that we're talking about. And then since operators are so important for running stateful workloads, what are the roles of operators in Kubernetes? And then maybe some resources on where to find ones, common tools that people are using, and then an overview of the DOK ecosystem. So, all the other open source projects that are sort of adjacent to DOK, And then, lastly, this sort of like, okay, how do we actually do something with this information, right? So maybe this could be a couple different paths. So maybe not everybody's interested in running a database. Maybe people are like, okay, how do I run batch workloads? But for now, it's like I wanted to have a goal in mind, and sort of, um, so that's so people are working towards something. And then we could also have next steps, right? So like, okay, after you've done this, how do you then like more resources to point them to continue their journey on DOK. So what I did was I created this outline in GitHub, and I basically just created it's funny. Someone actually I was talking to when they joined DOK Slack, and they're like, "Oh, are there any resources for getting started?" And I said, "Well, I just posted this here. This is very new. We're working on this, but here are some resources that I've gathered." And then they actually, maybe was that Kallio? I think, and Kallio submitted a pull request already to add some information. So, but yeah, I broke it up. Like here are the major buckets, like project description, so goals. Oops, the table of contents here is so basically intro to stateful types of workloads, and the goal here is to have people fill in the information, and to get volunteers to so there are certain sections that require some like writing, right? Not necessarily links. Like here, like what are the different types of workloads, and sort of explain what they are. Like that'd be great to have people who have good understanding of those to be able to add their information there. And then for some of these other parts, it's like basically just adding resources for the section. So for each section, also we have a purpose, like what is the point of this section, and then what are the resources that we can use for that section. So for now, I would say, like you see Ryan added some content, like, or some comments. I would love to get feedback on like if people think does this make sense? Is this a good, like, kind of from start to finish, good set of questions to be answering? And then, maybe we can change that. So I think that's sort of step one, is getting feedback on, is this the right approach? And then once we have that, then we can start maybe people can volunteer to fill in for certain sections where there's, requires writing. And then down here, by the way, I don't want to disregard, like this is content that people have added already, which is great. I don't know necessarily where to put them yet. But I left these here. These are just resources that will try and fit into the slots. So yeah, does anybody have any questions or comments about this now? Okay, well, yeah, I would say actually someone else already gave me some information as well. So, if you look this over and you think, well, I think we're missing some information here, like I think this is important part to cover, or like maybe how do I deploy a database to Kubernetes? Maybe that's not the first best goal, for somebody, then definitely let me know. Oh, Jonathan, go for it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking that at the moment I don't have a question right now because I need to read all the paper and understand better
Sure.
the purpose to, let's say, construct in my mind how would I write down all the points. I think we need also to express or explain a bit of the underlying storage. How does it work in the context of Kubernetes, to understand how it's mapped to the stateful set or volume, persistent volume. So I don't know if it's the purpose of this guide yet, but I think I feel that is missing a part of the Kubernetes knowledge to understand better how storage and data works in Kubernetes. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, actually, and that's sort of Ryan basically said a lot of those same comments here. Like, what are the building blocks of deploying state applications, PVCs, and how do they work? Basics usage of PVC deployment. So Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't write the Kubernetes documentation twice. I think it's enough to link portion of the documentation, right?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And that's also sort of what so some of the resources I put already, like if you look here, the different sections, like I've added some stuff that I think makes sense, like documentation on stateful sets for Kubernetes, but also there's from DoK Day North America last year in Chicago, there was a really great talk from Caslin Fields and Michelle Au on basically, an introduction to stateful on Kubernetes, which is really awesome. So, yeah, I definitely agree. Like, we don't have to write, everything like the documentation, but I think, yeah, pointing to the right places um, is good. And sometimes I think having something like, yeah, documentation is great, but sometimes I find documentation is also not necessarily the best way to explain something too. So if we have like multiple resources, I think is always a good option too. So
Yeah, blog posts that or tutorial that explain practically how everything works together. It's
yeah,
better somewhere.
yeah. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I think for now, like, just soak this in, take a look if you can at the GitHub link and just see how it's organized. And then from there, yeah, we can try and get more feedback if people think this is like the right approach. And then from there, we can ask for volunteers to help fill in the sections. Yeah, but I do, like I said, I think some of this will help. Maybe, this is more like leveraging resources that exist. And maybe what Lisa's talking about is more like writing, like kind of summarizing that content into like, written words, where here is we're more gathering information like that already exists. So, but I still think they sort of dovetail with each other because right now we're trying to create a story about, what does it mean to run stateful workloads. So on Kubernetes. Um, cool. Does anybody else have any comments for now about this? All right. Let me just a couple updates. So, Kubernetes from the SIG storage. So I try to attend these meetings, but if I can't attend them live, I watch the recording. So just some things that are coming out of there. Kubernetes version 1.31 was released, and then here are just some sort of updates. Um, um, Oops, I messed up here. This was supposed to be like that. Some updates from SIG storage. So some things that are basically the status of where they are for version 1.3.1, some things that we're working on. One thing that made it into GA was this PV last phase transition time. Now I can't tell you exactly what that what that is, but that made it to GA. Some of the like kind of bigger ones I remember Shing was telling me about, which was like volume attribute class. So that made into beta. Like this is sort of a big one that they're working on. Volume snapshots that got pushed to version 1.32. And then here's something that made it into GA, which auto delete PVCs with stateful sets. So that's just some updates from SIG storage, just so you kind of know what's coming, what's being worked on now and what's coming down the pipeline. And then we still are getting data from the DoK survey. I know some of you were saying you had issues with submitting based on some questions. They're sort of weeding you out. We're trying to work with the survey company to loosen some of the restrictions. So I apologize if you took that and you weren't able to do it, but we are trying to still collect data. I think we started collecting data at probably the worst possible time, which is like the end of the summer. So we're still extending that out, and I'm reaching out to other groups like other communities like Apache Unicorn, who's a community collaborator, ML Ops Slack. I reached out there, and then we also submitted to Kube Weekly. So hopefully that will show up this Friday with a link to the survey, trying to get more responses. But yeah, feel free still if you know people to share that link to try and collect more data for our survey, so we can have our report at the at KubeCon. So, and that is really, I think that's it for today. Unless anybody else has anything they want to add to the agenda or anything to say.
Just a quick question. Can somebody drop like a LinkedIn post for the DoK survey? I can circulate it throughout my circles as well.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can actually, here, I'll just do it right now. I had to write a post because I submitted it to Kube Weekly. Oh, here, I'll stop sharing. I'll just send it to, I'll put it in the chat. Cool. All right. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Well, I think that's it. So yeah, thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Lori. Thanks everybody for joining. Appreciate it. And yeah, I think we have some cool stuff to work on. All right. See y'all in a couple weeks.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me.
Bye bye.